Hello and welcome to another instalment of the Full Force Monthly, brought to you by Hoardar, the Collector's app. I am Christopher McLeod AKA Diagnostic 80, and in this regular series we get stuck into specific G.I. Joe related topics every single month. Joining me on this episode is one half of the Articulated Points YouTube channel and my regular co-host on the Full Force Weekly. It's Patrick Notpicard Stewart, and of course the General himself, Justin Generals Joes Bell. Okay then, last month and with the recent Glenda reveal as the Tier 2 unlock, we went deep into international waters and looked at characters we would like to see incorporated into the classified series. For this month, we thought we would follow on the coattails of SDCC by coming up with very narrative-specific San Diego Comic-Con exclusives we would like to see in the G.I. Joe classified series. Throw in another version therapy, and you've got yourselves a brand new episode of... What is it, Pat?
It's the Full Force Monthly.
Yay! And Justin's back. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. How you guys doing? Good to see you.
Yeah, not bad. How are you, Pat? You good?
Yeah, doing pretty well. We're already having ourselves a fun time today.
We should go into massive detail about what happened, but I should have just been recording it, and it's my fault at the end of the day. Pat and I were playing an alphabet game, and I got stuck on a toy company alphabet game, and I got stuck on the letter B. Yes. I won't go into much more detail, but you can imagine the embarrassment that was caused by not realising that I'm very close and work for another company that begins with a B.
For, yeah.
Exactly. So we'll move on quickly and sharply on that one, but it did result in lots of laughter and tears. In actual fact, I was crying. That was funny though, Pat, wasn't it? I don't think we've laughed that much before on the show.
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I have.
Sorry, Justin. We're just not that funny when we're all together. That's the problem. Anyway, lots of fun stuff to get stuck into today. I've got the presenters, got each of us to pick an SDCC thing. Guys, before we get into that, SDCC was a bit crazy, wasn't it?
It was manic. I loved it. It's a double-edged sword because I loved all the reveals and everything they went through, but at the same time, it's a lot of pre-orders coming down the pipe. And I've also been kind of maintaining a little section on my website to try to track some of this stuff, and like I just got some of them entered and they revealed some other stuff, and I just got those entered and then revealed other stuff, and it was like a non-stop avalanche all weekend.
All classified avalanche confirmed by Justin Bell.
Yeah, exactly. HasLab only, though. Vehicle of that size, man. You can't do that on the shelves.
Answers all our questions, doesn't it? a vehicle of that size.
A vehicle of that size answers all my questions.
Holding a dragonfly or a his tank. and it's like Zartan is just looking at it reflecting. Anyway, what am I talking about? Yeah, what about you, Pat? Was it an absolute killer of an event?
There's just so much stuff. It's impossible to not love something that is shown, and
True.
I'm trying to cut back lately, so it makes it difficult to actually cut back. It's sometimes I feel like with all the reveals and the pre-orders, you feel the stress of spending the money twice. Once whenever the pre-order goes up, and then once whenever it actually hits. So I don't know. Some of the stuff was really cool though. Like I did manage to get in an order for some of the San Diego stuff, and the Transformers showed up 2 days ago, I think.
Wow.
Nice.
Fast.
That is nuts, isn't it, really? Like, considering you kind of think, they don't have the product at the show, it's probably going to take months and months before you see it, and then boink, there it is. I know that the Super 7 stuff has been turning up pretty routinely for everyone, hasn't it? It's crazy.
Yeah, which is nice. I like it whenever there's a short period of time between the pre-order period and the delivery.
Yeah.
It's just tough whenever there's so much at once.
As we're recording this now, it's the first day Chuckles has gone live on Hasbro Pulse, and it's like 5 after 1, and he's still in stock. So I mean,
that's crazy. Like I had a feeling that they would do like a segment of, because in the past it's just been like Pulse get it first, and then no one gets it after Pulse because it's sold out already. Right. And I figured they might have done like a separate segment thing, but it just seems like they've got a ton. And they're just, it's just continuing on, which is amazing. That's really
great.
Good.
They might have learned their lesson from Mindbender, because I know there was a lot of people that had missed out on that one.
Still a lot of people in the UK haven't got theirs as well.
Yeah,
which
I've
is
heard that too.
Mind-blowing. Mind-bending.
Mind-bending, yeah,
absolutely
exactly.
mind-bending. And Serpentor as well. Anyway, That's SDCC. We're also going to be talking Super 7 in the extra, so don't worry, we will do a bit of Super 7 in the monthly extra episode. Right, let's get on then with the show. Okay then, with SDCC still fresh in our melted brains, we have decided to each come up with a different option for a classified SDCC CCCC exclusive, easy for me to say. Each presenter must reveal their choice, explain the narrative behind their figure or figures, itemise the accessory loadout and describe the elaborate packaging they will be adorned with. No real rules here, just hit us with a good one please, and thank you. Okay Justin, who have you decided to go with and why is it hit and run again?
It is not hit and run. Because I already used him for this. We did a show similar to this for deluxe figures, not for SDCC necessarily, but deluxe figures. And
are you gonna call me out on my mistake that I made in the message group?
I wasn't gonna say a thing.
You should do. You
just
now.
Blew it. So the fact that you wanted to do Pythona in her slimy eyeball packaging.
Already
for both
done it.
Sets.
I literally described exactly what I did on a monthly about 4 months ago. Yeah.
You're asking us to spend hours of our life coming up with these ideas. You're just going to regurgitate something you've already done.
Just going to throw it back up again. There you go. Okay, you got the hitting. Now carry on. Who's your character in that?
Well, the character I'm choosing, there's a few different reasons I went with him. It's Claymore from the Special Missions Brazil set.
Brilliant.
And I've got a real appreciation for Claymore for a couple of different reasons. First of all, I think a lot of folks probably know, because I've complained about it endlessly for the entire time that I've been a G.I. Joe fan, is, where I grew up, there wasn't a whole lot of local Toys R Us, so I didn't even know Special Mission Brazil was a thing until in the 90s, when James D. Simone released his little guides and those little flimsy paper guides, and I finally figured out that, oh, wow, that's a whole bunch of figures I didn't realize. And Claymore quickly became sort of a iconic part of that for me, because he was the only he was a repaint, but he was a new character in that set. So I immediately sought him out, and when I got him, I was blown away, because his birthplace was Manchester, Vermont, which is not far from where I am, and he graduated from Dartmouth College, which is literally my hometown. So I work for Dartmouth Hitchcock Healthcare. I work for Dartmouth, and he graduated from Dartmouth. So there was all these personal connections that sort of immediately brought him to life to me and made him a character that I really had an affinity for. So not only that, but I thought he also represented a kind of cool built-in storyline, so to speak, for Special Missions Brazil, something the Collectors Club kind of leaned into with one of their box sets way back in the day. And I thought maybe, Hasbro could do something similar. If how they're doing with Chuckles, where the San Diego Comic-Con Chuckles plays into a HasCon Crimson Strike set later on, they could do something similar and pull maybe some cool Brazilian exclusive characters, some of those Cobra Frankenstein repaints, and so kind of future, as Emily would say, we're future-proofing this exclusive by making, allowing him to give call-outs for potential future sets. So the character would be kind of built around the Special Missions Brazil operation, where he's got to go into the jungles of Brazil. I believe Claymore's kind of primary military specialty was long-range recon, if I remember right. So he would be packaged with a bunch of gear that would kind of lean into that sense that he's going to be out in the woods on his own for a while. A compass, maybe a canteen, obviously, an assault rifle, a weapon, a knife, binoculars. I really like the idea of sort of a sniper rifle. I know that's kind of might be taking from Lowlight's gimmick a little bit if we give him this kind of take apart sniper rifle, so I could probably give or take that, but I would have loved to have him come with a ghillie suit, like a big kind of camouflage suit that he could wear so he could conceal himself within the surrounding Amazon rainforest more effectively. So that's kind of what I pictured, is this loadout that you could look at and see, well, he's planning on being in the jungle for a long time. He's going to be out there and behind enemy lines, he's got to do whatever he can to survive. And from a color, from a packaging perspective, first of all, my idea was sort of make it, and I know it's kind of a gray area, because I had the Aztecs in mind when I was coming up with this package design. Technically, the Aztecs were Mexico, not Brazil, but there is still some of that, some of that pyramid architecture in Brazil from some of the ancient races that were down there around that time earlier. So I was going to lean into sort of that stone texture, covered in ivy kind of thing, where
Nice.
it's like, a secret temple that, Indiana Jones might have discovered, where it's just like shrouded in vines and everything like that. And then, so it would be kind of a beige-ish color, beige and brown color, with some really ornate textures around it. And what I thought might be cool is that for the Claymore figure himself, if his pants were like still had that yellow and brown tinge, but maybe softer tone to kind of make it look like he camouflage himself with that pyramid. So make those colors kind of more uniform with the packaging and with the figure inside. And obviously, because of what sort of figure it is, it could be tooling that could be later used for Footloose or borrowed from Televiper, because that's what the original borrowed some of those pieces from Televiper. So it wouldn't even require a whole lot of new tooling, which they're certainly not afraid to do that with SDCC exclusives. They use a ton of new tooling with Mindbender. They've used a ton of new tooling with Chuckles. So they're not afraid to do that, but this could be an avenue where they could borrow some tooling from other figures, or take tooling in this and repurpose it for Footloose or whatever, because obviously there's the head and the helmet. The helmet, I think they could do some really cool job with in Classified, with sort of the layered leaves over it and make them some different colors. And, it might be cool to have them come with the Uzi, because the original figure kind of came with that Uzi, and then, a more long gun to complement it. But, sort of the backpack was kind of what I thought might be the focal point of the set, where they could design a backpack in a way that maybe it held every single one of these. There's a spot for the compass, there's a little peg for maybe a set of long-range binoculars or something. There's something else that holds his knife, and that could be kind of like what they build the set around, is this really cool backpack that manages to hold all these various tiny little accessories and can like fold out, and you can kind of peel them all out and all that stuff. So that was kind of what I had in mind. Just Claymore, he's got a personal connection to me. He's kind of the doorway into that Brazil storyline that could go in a bunch of other different directions. And you can work in a pretty cool packaging design as well.
Didn't you also say that you were going to include a Cobra weapons crate?
Yes. Thank you for catching that. I did forget to mention that. That was another element where the mission in Brazil would involve recovering a piece of Cobra technology, where it would come with like this sort of smaller trunk or footlocker thing, Cobra themed, and it could open up and there might be like a little maybe missile in there, or a little chunk of a satellite, or an intact satellite or something. That was going to be another element of what he was going into the jungle to recover, or what he was going to be doing recon for.
Love it. I love it. Right, then first off, Pat, what do you think about Claymore? Are you going to tell Justin, no, we can't have this?
No, I like this idea. I had a very similar experience with Special Mission Brazil. We didn't have Toys R Us around here at the time that this came out. And I can remember another collector that was going to meet up with me, and he had lived for a while in the UK and was bringing some Action Force stuff. And I can remember him opening up his trunk to get the stuff out. And I just saw this box with wetsuit sitting on top, the Special Mission Brazil wetsuit. And I was like, what is that? And this was like 1990.
Wow.
I had just not heard of them because they weren't covered very regularly in any sort of magazines. I'd not seen them in Cotswold. They were a surprise to me very, very later on. And so Claymore, being the one that they created specifically for the set, he's already kind of special. And so I think that makes sense to treat him in a special way. And to be honest, I really miss Toys R Us, and his pants, I'm sure, started as an homage to
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it would be nice to have it treated in a special way.
Him and Leatherneck, just giraffe pant team.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Force. Amazing.
There are some options with the giraffe pants, because Leatherneck had the yellow with brown spots as well, but that figure originally was planned to have brown with like a yellow pattern added to it. So you can flip-flop what colors those are to fit whatever theme Justin is looking for here. There's a lot of wiggle room, even if you're keeping with the giraffe pants.
Definitely. I love this idea because, like you say, Claymore is the standout in the set in a sense, because it's a different character. So that's the one that gets the SDCC treatment, and then obviously later on you can incorporate a similar narrative in the main line with mainframe and dial tone thrown in as we finally get those figures or whatever, and then they get those repaints because they're pretty synonymous with those just as much as their regular decos. I would say that You know, when you look at mainframe, he's just as iconic in that tan as he is with the in the grey. And same with Wetsuit. Wetsuit has got a dope color scheme in that special missions set with that kind of silvery grey.
Yeah.
Like it's really nice. And again, I'm trying to think who else is in that set. Dial Tone, right? Yeah, Dial Tone looks pretty cool as well in that set. Like I just could see them squeezing out the rest of that special missions Brazil narrative elsewhere. So yeah, that's phenomenal, mate.
And interestingly, like even though I would consider some of those special mission Brazil team members to be pretty important members of GI Joe, none of them have gotten classified treatment yet. So they're all still kind of out there that, you know,
mental.
We're getting Range Viper and Mole Rats and stuff like that before we get Leatherneck and Wetsuit, and which is fine with me. I mean, I think they've got to save some of those core characters for later on. You know, they've got to extend the life of the line and not dump everybody from 82 to 86 out right away. But
Alpine, Airtight, Lifeline. Well, Quick Kick's coming at least. We know that. But yeah, but you're right. There's so many still to do. Repeater. Charbroil. I'm getting a little lower down the list now. Recoil, Ambush. There's load. Lightfoot, Downtown.
That light green mail away Deep Six. I mean, come on.
Yeah, definitely.
Do 'em.
No, that's a good shout, mate. I love the idea of the box as well. Kind of, I envision it like it's kind of like one of those double opening kind of lid type scenarios. So like on the front would have two covers, and it would be like vines as one that you take off, and then the front of the brickwork. Do you know what I mean? And then like
that would be cool.
So you've got maybe on the front, maybe on the brickwork, you've got like almost Indiana Jones etched kind of like designs.
Or maybe the shape of the box could be pyramid shaped. I mean, that would drive collectors crazy because they like having all the uniform stuff. But I mean, Mindbender and Sprinter, they're all different sizes anyway, so it's not that uniform. But yeah, you could do like the step pyramid shape to the box itself, and it kind of opens out. That would be pretty neat.
To appease that crowd, keep it square, but have the pyramid raised, sticking out a little bit, so you still have the pyramid effect and shape. And then you open it all, and I'd love the thought of like having one of the doors having those like vines and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
That clears it, and then you open that, and you're like, oh, cool. Yeah, that would be amazing. And I love the thought of a Cobra crate as well. You mentioned there that it might be better to do some sort of trunk, like a more modern military one that's got padding inside it and is maybe like a But either way, it depends what weapon or piece that you're dealing with there, doesn't it? But either way, really love it, man. That's a great shout.
Like Mars on that too, like the Mars logo.
Yes. Oh, that'd be great.
There you go. Thinking ahead. Right then, Pat. We've had Claymore. Who are you going with for SDCC?
I started thinking about figures that already would be difficult to fit all of their accessories and gear into just a standard figure.
Can I say before you reveal this was one I was contemplating before I went with what I went with. So really? I love the fact you went with it because it means we can talk about it. So I'm double happy on this one.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, so the one that I'm going with is one that I really think would be an awesome new figure to make, and that is Fast Draw.
Hell yes.
Yeah, and my thinking on this, actually J.E. Russell made a custom Fast Draw, 4-inch Fast Draw years ago that really plays in a lot to this same idea. If you look at Fast Draw's file card, a lot more of this will make sense. What I want him to come with is a lot of removable gear, but I also want to kind of rethink the missile launchers, because the missile launchers that Fast Draw come with are awesome, but part of his problem is that, he gets to fire twice and then he's just done with a battle.
Useless.
Yeah.
He's got those little triggers that pretend guns.
He can pretend. Yeah. And if the Cobras don't know what they are, he could be like, "Don't move."
Freeze. It bends over the end of your hand. Doesn't even have a barrel on it. I said freeze.
Right. Backpack missile launcher for sure. I want him to have a removable helmet with the visor and the hose, and the remote triggers with hoses. Then I want him to come with options for the missiles. Now, maybe the whole rack on the side is removable, not just having different pods, different missiles in there. But I would like to have the two different types of missiles be the one on each side, and then the other option be a bunch of missiles on each side.
Yeah, like the kind of like those multi-launcher type things with multiple spots.
Like salvos, square kind of combo missile launchers, maybe one on each side. It's got like 4 of them in there or something like that, 4 or 5, or.
Well, I'm thinking like a cluster because.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Says that he has a Fafnir missile system, which is a fire and forget non-tube launched infantry rocket. So
of course, we all knew that, Pat. We all knew that.
All exposed.
You didn't need to say that. We all knew that's exactly what a Fafnir was. So it's all good.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like it's McLeod where you don't know what all the individual letters mean.
We'll get to that later. We'll get to that in the version therapy. But carry on, Pat.
Okay. So yeah, I want him to have a couple of different missile options on there because this is a San Diego thing. So I'm kind of going all out. And then I thought, well, maybe the other way of approaching the problem of only having 2 missiles is to have a robot that acts as a caddy.
Nice.
A robot that just carries extra missiles for him and can follow him around in battle.
I love that.
And so I'm just picturing this missile or this robot. Actually, what I'm picturing is handing this project off to Lenny or somebody, and then figure out how to make it look cool.
Oh, nuts! Yeah,
that doesn't fire missiles, just carries them. So yeah, he's going to resupply fast draw, and I want it to be a leg robot, not one with treads, because we have the ones with treads and the missiles on it already with scrap iron, and I think that's a little bit strange if you have. The very similar looking robots. You got to go a different direction with it, and I'm saying go with legs.
Would you go with or in your head, are you seeing something that's a little bit bigger than one of those Boston Dynamic dog type robots?
Yeah, I kind of am because I was picturing the Boston Dynamics thing, but then I'm like, well, are the missiles just along the sides pointing up? Is it an undercarried crate, or is it like a pallet on top? And that's almost what I'm leaning toward, is maybe almost like a Boston Dynamics thing that has like almost a flatbed to it so that you could put those on there, but then maybe it'd be useful to carry some other things into battle so it looks like a standard robot that just happens to be carrying missiles.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could go a lot of different ways, but I am being honest whenever I say hand this to somebody who's an actual designer and have them figure it out, because they'd make it look a lot cooler than what I'm getting in my head.
Just to say, in the graphics style, I use one of a crazy looking thing, like 6 legs. It's like Walker, and I think has wheel options as well. But it's more of one of those robots you see in kind of like anime,
like a Tachikoma from
Ghost in the Shell. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly what I was thinking.
That's not. I know that's not really where we're going with this, but that was the only image I could find that was like bigger than the Boston Dynamics dog one and everything. So anyway, but
maybe you use that for inspiration, go that direction anyway. Like I'm just picturing some sort of robot. Of course, as they're designing it, they're also going to have to think about cost and how they're going to fit that in. So it doesn't even have to be like articulated legs or anything. I just want him to have the ability to have more than 2 missiles brought to him on the battle.
Yeah.
And then for my story, one of the aspects that I want of the figure is for all that gear to be removable, because that's kind of a thing with some of the more bulky gear anyway from the 6-inch line, that you can picture all that padding. Like, look at Tripwire, the way that he's coming out.
Oh.
The padding he has on his torso. You'd have something very large and similar to that, if not just reusing that for Fast Draw's torso. But then
it's funny how Tripwire has become very prominent in this episode in general. Like he'll be kind of quite for the forefront of my choice as well, for the similar reasons, the secondary reasons. But yeah, it's weird that he's massive in this particular set. It's almost like that release kind of helped us decide on, okay, we want to do this now because we can
setting
do
this precedent as something they can do, with this base figure and then multiple different layers on top of it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and then my thought is that he's already going to be so bulky. The way that I guess I'll just use Tripwire as an example, but Snow Serpent's also another example where they've kind of taken the base figure as what the vintage looked like and added layers to that. I'm going the opposite direction with Fast Draw, and saying, okay, let's take all that gear and remove it, and also give him a holster with a pistol. As far as his story goes, is if you read the file card, it says Fast Draw thinks of himself as an Old West gunfighter. And what I'm getting at by saying that you're removing all of the gear is that once that gear comes off, I would have, I guess it's 3 additional accessories. There would be the holster, a revolver, and I want it to be a modern revolver. I don't want to go too Old West with it.
Yeah, 6-shooter kind of style, yeah.
Conflicting design style for him. So I would think a modern revolver inside a holster, a modern holster as well. And then I'm trying to think of what kind of cowboy hat I want him to have.
Oh man, nice.
But I don't want him to go Wild Bill style.
Right.
Hat, which is like, actually a military hat in itself.
Yep.
I'm going to go with the man with no name. Give him that Clint Eastwood look. And so it says on his file card, he thinks of himself as an Old West gunfighter. I actually want him to have in the story a moment where it comes down to that, where he and Scrap Iron have just been completely, firing the missiles back and forth. The tanks are all down, and it's just the two of them
nice.
Left. And the gear comes off, and they're staring at each other. And it's time for in the battlefield.
Wow.
Yep, it's time for the old.
That's so awesome, yeah.
Face off, and it's him versus Scrap Iron.
And then Nick Cage and John Travolta turn up, and they do a face off as well, right?
Right, sure, why not? Maybe it's Nick Cage underneath there playing fast.
There you go. That's wicked, man. I love it. I love the whole thing. Fast Draw is one of my favorite figures that never really gets any love at all. Like, he didn't even really get a decent run in the modern era, unfortunately. I mean, he got he got the one figure, but it wasn't great. Do you know what I mean? It was just like blowtorch, basically, wasn't it, again? But, I think in terms of the vintage figure and what a classified figure could be, blown away by that. Love all the different additions you've thrown in there. Love the fact there's a caddy robot that we could, include in. It's basically a figure and pet, is what you're talking about, but for SDCC, which is fantastic. What do you think, Justin?
Oh, I love the idea. The whole gunslinger, like kind of after all the missiles have been spent and just him and Scrap Iron, that is fantastic. That's inspired. I really like that a lot.
And Scrap Iron's just got a remote control. That's all.
No, he comes with a pistol too. The classified version comes with a pistol. They can make it gun on gun. But yeah, I mean, Fast Draw is one of those characters that I think benefits from his specialty, but also suffers from it because he looks very cool. He's very unusual, very unique. But yeah, once he fires those 2 missiles, what is he? He's some dude running around the battlefield in his big bulky suit, and you can't repurpose him in many different areas. Like, that's why I sometimes really gravitate towards, the standard military look like Falcon or Hit and Run or those guys, because you can put them almost anywhere.
Yeah.
They can serve multiple purposes, but Fast Draw is kind of locked into his specialty.
Funny you should mention those particular characters in a row, because one of my favorite issues of the Action Force Monthly, which then became European Missions, was the last issue, which was the one where Falcon, Hit and Run, Fast Draw, there's a tunnel rat, there's a couple of them basically doing a mission, and Fast Draw takes out 2 segments of a maggot. That he kind of, and he just takes them straight both out. But like, he's utilized in the right way in that one. But it is very much he is cornered by these 2 maggot kind of front ends and just takes them both out. It's really cool. But it's interesting that you mentioned those particular characters, and they're all the characters that show up in that issue.
That wasn't on purpose, but we can pretend it was.
We can.
But yeah, I mean, I think the idea that you can take that bulky suit off and give him sort of a more minimized look underneath is cool, because you can use him in more ways than just, because he's a qualified soldier. He's not just a guy that has rockets strapped to his shoulders. He can
just a guy.
He can do other things. So I really like the idea that one thing that I enjoy about the 6-inch scale and the way Hasbro is doing that is that, to a degree, some of the gear can be kind of swapped around a little. Some of it takes a little bit more effort than others, but you could conceivably craft a fast draw where you take off the bulky armor and find another tactical vest or something like that. And if you're good enough at customizing, you can kind of work him into a more sort of quote unquote standard military look, and use them in more different ways. Give him a handheld missile launcher instead of his big backpack or whatever. Just gives you some more options. But yeah, Fast Draw is one of those characters that you see and you immediately identify, yet at the same time doesn't end up very prolific throughout the mythos because he is kind of cornered into that one single specialty.
Pigeonholed, yeah. No, that's totally.
Yeah,
totally
I'm sorry, Fast Draw. This particular mission doesn't require a dude with missiles on his shoulders. So you're
surprisingly enough, no, it's very true. I will always love that figure though. That was one of my
it's a great figure.
There's something so substantial to him, and the features and the missiles flipping and everything. It's just so good. The visor, it's all dope.
There's certain figures you can tell that they went into with the idea, how can we make this fun to play with?
And
not
cool,
necessarily that it makes sense, but it's really fun to play with. The kids can do stuff with it. And that's one of them. Just so much different play aspects to that single figure, and the fact that it's the same price point as any of the other normal figures were back in that day. It's pretty crazy.
And I know you said you didn't want the robot to be able to fire necessarily, Pat, or you wanted it to just be a carry kind of caddy robot. But I was just thinking, like, in order to make it look pretty cool, you could have the side cluster missiles attached to it in a very aggressive looking way, so it could fire them if necessary as a backup, and he's got control of both, if that makes sense. So like you kind of almost have it almost as a backup, and then obviously he can switch things out for you if you need it switched out, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that if you position them that way, that would make it kind of up to the person buying it, whether they want to imagine it one way or the other.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe even like just a tiny gun on the robot, so that it can get itself where it needs to go without problems.
A little old 6-shooter in a holster that it pulls out, like, and it has a little cowboy hat on it, right? Yeah, come on.
Beautiful.
And then it needs
give it
to
some
have
personality.
It almost needs to have like a robotic horse look to it, maybe.
Oh my god, that's genius.
That is genius.
There you go. You just do a Boston Dynamics horse, effectively, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think we've worked it out.
Do you make it big enough so that Fast Draw can actually
ride it? Yes!
That would be amazing.
I can't believe we have literally...
Like Brave Star and 3030, whatever, bouncing into battle on his robot horse. Oh, that'd be beautiful.
You could do it. You could actually give it like 6 legs still. So it's a horse, but it's also a mutated horse.
Oh my goodness. That's
terrifying. Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Scrap Iron would key himself before they ever got to like the showdown phase. It's like this mutant 6-legged horse storming into battle.
Amazing.
Almost making me sad that this isn't a real thing.
It is, I know. Fast Draw with a blooming horse robot one. That's nuts. Okay. Fantastic choice. And also something no one's really mentioned yet, but they kind of mentioned it, or one of us did, but he would look really good with Wild Bill, almost like as a couple of cowboys, a couple of cow lads. Love it.
Yeah, I kind of wanted it to be complementary rather than just looking exactly the same.
Yeah, you want it to be completely different design, 100%. Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, cool. 2 absolute bangers. And I will say that I was, like I said, was definitely on board with Fast Draw because I wanted to do that myself. But I did get my act together, and finally come up with an idea that I thought made some pretty cool sense on this one. And again, Tripwire was I would say one of the inspirations behind what I wanted to do with this figure to make it even cooler. And I've gone with Budo. Now, this is another one of those characters that you could probably argue Claymore, Fast Draw, Budo, all very similar in level and exposure in terms of the brand over the years. Not a lot has been utilized with these particular characters. Budo has had a few comic appearances, more so, like in later issues. Like there was that Special Missions Japan. He's been in the recent Larry Hama, Real American Hero, IDW series a lot. So But again, like, we hardly see Fast Draw. Claymore popped up as well, didn't he, in like some of the kind of Image Devil's Due kind of era as well, didn't he? In like America's Elite, I want to say. But these are all characters that have definitely no way in hell could be described as core characters. But I went with Budo, and one of the reasons is he is one of those characters that just looks really cool, a bit bonkers. It's kind of like on the same kind of level as your Crystal Balls and your Raptors. It's like a samurai in the middle of the G.I. Joe battle. But it's no different, I guess, than some of the ninjas that are included in the line. But there is still, he almost like doesn't fit in any particular bracket, but he's always lumped in with the Arashikage. Do you know what I mean? Like doesn't really fit anywhere technically. But that's kind of why I like him. And obviously it's a figure I had as a kid, thought he was amazing. And my idea with this Budo figure is to, well, for one, I've got the image up of version 1 right now. But here's my thinking on this. This is SDCC. You could argue the fact that you could repaint this and get him in the main line at some point as well. So I'm thinking we go closer to his international mail away, the Action Force mail away kind of deco, which is also very similar, not the same, but very similar to the unreleased Ninja Commandos Budo. Now, all of these things are going to come together in like, to mold what this figure is going to look like. So I'm thinking you get the vintage style as the base figure, right? Maybe even sculpted torso rather than secondary for the vintage style, right? You have, rather than that kind of orange color, we tweak that and we go a little darker red with it. So we've got the teal on the helmet, we've got the teal on the body, and then black pants and like the red armor on the arms. And that will, and maybe even like red, we'll go with red shin pads, and that will become evident in a second. You guys probably, the two of you probably know what I'm getting at the moment in keeping the arms and the legs a little bit free and also red. And you probably at home probably understand what I'm getting at. But we'll go through the accessory loadout first. So I'm thinking classic removable helmet. Very similar, obviously, to the one that we know and love from the original figure. Obviously, a katana sword, a wakizashi, both sheathed. And I'm guessing, the one that was the red color, the red sword, I would do like a red handle, but a silver blade, because I thought that would be kind of a nice homage to it, rather than doing a whole red blade kind of thing. And then obviously the other one, more ornate, but also they're going to have to be quite similar for my future thing. And of Sai as well. And now the Sai he has is kind of interesting because it doesn't look like regular Sais where the handguard pokes up. In this case, you've got one poking up and one poking down, so it's kind of a really interesting kind of design. But again, I would want him to have that because it'd feel that's quite synonymous with the character. And a backpack, so that you can have both swords sheathed and maybe on him. Maybe even have one of the swords by his side that connects to his belt, and maybe the sai either sheathed or, as it kind of appears on the image I'm showing at the moment, hooked to that little kind of point on his belt. So there could be lots of ways to kind of keep all this gear on him in this version of the figure. Now, this isn't all of it. There's more to this, and this is where the Tripwire technology comes into play. So the fact that we've now unlocked multiple secondaries as effectively things that you can throw on and off and make something else and different. That's what I'm going with here with Budo. I'm thinking that we throw in the whole modern design to recreate on this figure. So we get another helmet thrown into the mix, right? More ornate with the big deer antlers and everything. Plus, those antlers on the helmet will double as the sword display. I'm not sure if you've ever seen this before, but I was looking through some reference material, and there are stands with that same helmet with the antlers that then have the swords resting in those antler spaces. So the display is the helmet with the swords resting in the antlers. And I'm like, that would be so good, because it would be, the display would be the helmet effectively, right? So that's what I'm thinking, is to bring in this display option. And also you could do it so that the secondary is displayed almost like a mannequin. Or, you know, like the gear is resting on the display with all the swords, all ornate, all sexy, so that he can then, you know, it's either there as display kind of dio pieces in the background of a dojo, or it's, you know, he wears it. So that's the other thing. Like, he puts this gear on, the new helmet goes on and covers the face up completely. The secondary over the chest goes over the body, but the arms, because they've already got the red pieces on them and they're black underneath, go with this already. So the fact that we've already got the deco on that original figure means you don't have to have separate arm pieces or anything like that. And then of course the kind of dress set, or the, you know, the lower, like, I don't know what you call it, but like in ancient Rome it's called the fustanella, but like that, effectively that the skirt of the bottom is a secondary as well. So you could effectively have a skirt, like a sleeveless body piece, and a helmet, and that's all you need. Like the section on the body could have those almost like scarf pieces, those kind of bits of material that flow down. They could be attached to it already. You don't have to go too nuts and have like a separate piece for that. You could do if you wanted to, but I'm trying to keep costs down here, guys. Come on. But the fact that the helmet doubles as a sword display, for me, I was like, wow, that I would rather have those elements and than like a display stand to carry his gear, if that makes sense. And I've got an image as well of like an ornate display, which they could maybe utilize. And I was thinking the display could be for the full gear or could just be for the helmet and weapons. But I would love to incorporate the swords resting in the antlers of the helmet, because I think that would be such a cool visual. I'll flash the image up, but I haven't added it to the thing, unfortunately, for you guys, so you can't see how cool it looks. But I was really blown away when I saw that, and I thought, wow, why have I never, I'd never kind of put that together, but it kind of makes a lot of sense in a way. So that is my Budo figure. And the other thing I would also add is I'd give him multiple head sculpts. So I'd give him one standard head sculpt, maybe with the bandana, like the Ninja Commandos one, because you don't really, I mean, you do see his head under the helmet in the vintage figure, but I was thinking it might be overkill to have one with and one without a bandana. And then the other head would be the one with the goatee, slightly different looking, maybe an older version of him, for the ornate display sort of thing, kind of like when he's retired and he's just doing, like display kind of what do they, when they do like shows and stuff, for parades and shiz, martial arts extravaganzas and stuff like that. That's where I could see him kind of like, retiring from Joe and wearing that gear and with the old head and everything. Anyway, that's my idea for Budo, and the narrative around it isn't about it's not a retirement narrative. It would be linked with Arashikage, and it would be linked with maybe again going into like PulseCon further down the road. So as Justin kind of mentioned, connecting the two, like Chuckles and the Crimson Strike team, you could then start incorporating some bad guys into the fray. And I'm thinking this probably should have come up earlier, but Night Creepers and maybe the Night Creeper leader, and something in Japan kicking off. And almost like a special missions where Budo is brought in to investigate a new high-tech ninja team that have been taking over Japan, and he has to go in to investigate. And one of the scenes would be in his place in Japan. He's got his nice ornate display in the corner, like that's how I'm seeing it. And obviously his regular Budo version is the one that's going in to do this investigation. That is everything. What do you guys think?
Budo is one of those characters that I can usually find a place for almost anybody. Budo I struggle with a little bit for the same reason you do, is that he's kind of a branch of that Arashikage sort of clan, but he isn't really. He's a lot different, but he's always been very dramatic looking figure, very nicely stylized. And I think the way you're treating him is really great, because for the same reason as Fast Draw is kind of shoehorned in or pigeonholed in with his gear and stuff like that, Budo is kind of too, but the ability to kind of strip him down a little bit and make him a little bit more customizable and be able to fit into other areas, I think is great. One of my favorite G.I. Joe comic issues, it was in the 80s somewhere, and it features, I think, Repeater and Lightfoot and Budo, but they're not in their, they're training. So they're not,
they've got their t-shirts with their names on, like this one.
Exactly. So they're not always like fully kitted out in their gear, although I think he does wear it at some point in that, but it's just interesting, the idea of Special Forces commandos wearing samurai armor, and it's kind of funky, but that's what G.I. Joe's always been about. So I think it works. So I really and I absolutely love tying him into the Night Creepers. The Night Creepers are one of my favorite branch of Cobras that I think don't get enough love and attention, because I don't know why, but probably because they're purple and came out in the 90s. But they're still really fun. They're great figures, and I really I would love to see them do some kind of crossover thing between Budo and the Night Creepers. I think it makes a lot of logical sense. I think because Night Creepers have really not been given any classified love yet, but we have had them in the kids like 6-inch line, Snake Eyes movie line.
So maybe round the corner at some point.
We've got Range Viper already. I have no doubt that eventually we'll see the Night Creepers. I mean, they played a pretty significant role in the Marvel Comics during their time, so I think it's a certainty. I'm
not going to go into detail about what my PulseCon exclusive is, because guess what, guys? We're going to be doing that next month. So we've got to come up with our PulseCon exclusives, and yes, we can tie them to our SDCC exclusives, of course. But I'm thinking there's some good stuff that we can get into on that episode separately. Pat, what do you think? Are you a Budo fan in this scenario?
Yes, I like all the martial arts G.I. Joe stuff. That's some of the stuff that I've loved the most as I was getting back into it. Obviously, Snake Eyes really got me deep into G.I. Joe in '89, and
sexy.
I started hunting for a Budo immediately. I like what you're saying about the sword, just treating the hilt as red rather than an entire red blade. I do think that the Fun School one, in that respect, was a little bit superior in the vintage figures, because they swapped the colors of the swords. It always looked to me like the other sword should have been the red one. Yeah,
because it's in a sheath and everything. Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
But I think that would be nice, wouldn't it? If you keep the same red throughout, like on the modern body, on the handles of the swords, on the sheaths of the swords, then everything is covered. Like, you're covering the homages in every direction, in a sense, aren't you?
Yeah, and like you were saying, also with the Ninja Commandos reference being a possibility of the way that you could maybe kit it out, that it would look a little bit like that. He has some red, and the Ninja Commandos Budo, the colors of it are black and a color that doesn't quite match that mail-in.
Yeah.
But when you do modern figures, they always adjust the Pantone color a little bit.
Yep.
And there's enough wiggle room there that you could make a modern figure that would represent both.
I think it's nice as well the fact you get all the homage in there. You get that teal color, which is the important one, but it's hidden when he puts all the red on. So you're not getting like a clash or a weird thing happening, like a Transformers collaborative thing where some of Megatron is black and some of Bumblebee is green. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're getting the full modern kind of figure. If you want that, obviously it would be like really about being ornate and really about being like just, a showpiece. But the actual figure that's going to do the actual, the hard work is going to be the one without all that gear. But you do him as that deco, and you've got the main line to do a regular Budo in the future. And I just think that works in my head.
Yeah, I think that works really well. It's planning to make sure that people who walk in and only do retail are going to get the Budo that is most familiar to them. But then you're making an exclusive that is well worth buying, because it comes with all this stuff. I really like the idea of the rack of gear, because even when this Retaliation Budo that you're talking about, the modern one, came out, I was looking at, I don't know what it was. I think that there were some gashapons or something that were roughly 4 inches that had samurai suits of armor that were just on a rack.
Nice.
So The other thing that I'm kind of thinking about in regards to this is maybe he should have some shin armor, like something for his lower legs.
Yeah, I did mention that when I was talking about it. I said you could have like the shin guards would be red on the lower legs.
Okay.
So that
I wasn't sure if those were removable or not, though.
Well, I was thinking because it's on the deco of the figure, more or less, you could do it so that you had the arms as red and the lower shin guards as red, and the red on the helmet. Additionally, you tie it all together with the teal and the black, and you don't have to have extra pieces, if you know what I mean. Like the arms don't have to have extra pieces, the shin guards don't have to be extra. Everything would work as, visually, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's just when I see that build, usually, of a samurai armor, it includes the legs out in front, like the shin armor in front. So that's what I was picturing in my head. But if that's not the plan, it's not the plan.
Well, it was costed out. It wasn't up to me. I ran it by Emily. She said, we're going to have to cut this and that. You know how it is. Lols.
I think Pat is like giving you some shade about your design choices.
He hates me. He hates me. Yeah, he hates me. Right. That's the end of that. Well, I loved that. I really enjoyed that a lot. That was one of my favorite ones we've done so far, where we've gone like into all the details of everything. I bloody love it. I don't think I described the box though, but effectively it would be an ornate samurai Japanese and infusion style thing where you'd open the front and you'd see everything displayed in this ornate, elaborate way. The figure might even be underneath all the gear, just keeping it simple. Or you could have them separated, so the ornate element is on the right hand side, on its stand and everything, with all the weapons, and the other figures on the other side. So that would be how I would go about it. Very Japanese, very kind of. I'm thinking like also modern. Like infusion with the neon signs and the cityscape and stuff like that. Something really cool like that would be nice. But anyway, maybe his apartment. So you can actually have the display like in the corner, kind of on. Yeah. Anyway, but that's that. We've got to move on because we've got more to talk about. Let us know in the comments who you would like to see in the SDCC exclusive department, and let us know all the details. Like we've let you know all of our details. We'd love to hear about it, guys. Anyway, next up, we have a bit of version therapy. Have you tried Hoardar yet? No? Well, you need to. If you have a collection of things and want to create a fun and easy way of organising it and of course showing it off, then get involved. You can post items and build collections, and you can drop a status like getting a fun delivery or seeing some awesome related stuff on your travels. Build your collections with Hoardar. The app is free to download on Google Play and the App Store, so what are you waiting for? Get to hoarding. Right, continuing with our regular monthly segment now, Version Therapy, which is where we choose a single G.I. Joe or Cobra character and have a discussion on what action figure version is their best. Now, of course, we are all probably going to have different opinions on this based on where we were born, personal experience and so on, but that's where the fun lies. Feel free to let us know who your favourite action figure version is and why in the comments below as well. So who have we got next? Well, last month we looked at Stalker, based on his numerous international appearances as different characters, so this month, and with an eye on SDCC, who better to discuss with this presenter's massive ego than Tripwire? Yes, let's get into this one. Justin, we'll start with you, buddy. Tripwire, favourite version, and yeah, no pressure.
Now, you said this, our opinion of this may change depending on where we were born, and I have to say I wasn't born in India, so my choice of Fun School Tripwire might come out of left field a little bit, but that is who I am choosing, is the Fun School iteration of Tripwire. Tripwire, as I'll be honest, never been one of my favorite figures, and based on the news out of SDCC, I hate him even more just because he comes with you as a robot.
You son of a...
I'm just kidding. No, the classified version of Tripwire actually blows me away. It's probably, realistically, one of my favorite versions of the figure that we've ever seen, but I don't have it in hand yet, so I wasn't going to make that choice at this point.
I might make that choice.
I wouldn't blame you if you did. That might be another reason why I didn't choose it. But to me, the Fun School version just it has such fun with the idea. You know, the purple uniform, bomb squad written in big letters on his orange chest. I mean, it was just, it was almost comical. And since Tripwire isn't a figure I've got a lot of attachment to, seeing him portrayed in this way just brought me a little bit more joy. And that's kind of why I made that choice, because just it's a little silly, a little outlandish, but I think it works and it's fun, and really, you know, G.I. Joe is toys and it should be fun. So that's kind of why I went with Fun School.
I used to get Fun School and Listen and Fun mixed up so much, and not because they look. I mean, they're completely different, but
right.
But it's that I don't think at the time I was really paying much attention. I remember seeing one of them and then seeing the other later on and not realizing there was a difference and just thinking, oh yeah, there's that crazy color Tripwire kind of thing. And then it's not until later on that I'm like, oh yeah, that's Bomb Squad and the Fun School one, and then the Listen and Fun one is just all that crazy bright orange and and so I feel like they both need to be shouted out though, because they're both bonkers, but the Fun School one edges it for the Bomb Squad thing, man, for me.
And I will say, the one thing that I actually really love about Tripwire, and full credit as always to Larry Hama, is the file card, how he's like totally a klutz and clumsy and can barely walk straight except when he's dealing with explosives, and then he's like precise and right on. That's such an interesting little twist to what is kind of sort of a vanilla character in my mind, not one that I've ever really had a lot of attachment to, but that little key piece on his file card really brings the character to life in a very cool way.
I remember seeing in a comic in recent years they utilized Tripwire, but they were doing like, you know, it was like the kind of, they were infiltrating some sort of camp or something, well, some sort of Cobra base or whatever, and it was just he was just in regular gear with a rifle, and it just took so much out of him completely, not being
that's not who he is,
more interesting and more, you know, even the helmet would have been cool to kind of, you know, do that. But that was something that kind of made me think, they're just kind of using a name there more than anything else. But I
seem to remember that. I don't remember where that came from. That was something that IDW did sometimes with the Chuck Dixon G.I. Joe story, was they just kind of threw the Joes in regular camouflage and used their names, but they're all new characters anyway. They didn't really have the personality, so you kind of started to, well, you know, is this G.I. Joe or is this just generic military book with code names that happen to match G.I. Joe code names?
But good shout, mate. Pat, are you a fan of the Bomb Squad?
That's definitely a fun figure, and I was going
Fun School. It's a Fun School figure, mate.
Right. I was going to feel
not Listen and Fun School.
Listen and Fun School figure.
Listen and Fun School. Yeah.
I was going to feel a little weird if it didn't get a mention here, because it's so far out there and an interesting look to it. I kind of wonder, you know, if we do get a crazier version of Tripwire at some point, like from the classified figure, like would they do the Listen and Fun one, or would they do the Fun School one?
I think they do an amalgamation of kind of like a bit of both, maybe. Like you say, subdue the colours a little bit, stick Bomb Squad on him, and you kind of, you know, you get a bit of both, maybe.
Imagine how that would look.
Orange and purple. I think that would work.
I mean, maybe you could go with the Listen and Fun as the base, and then you add the purple, and it has Bomb Squad on it. And then
that works. Yeah, there you go. I'm actually, there's one thing that you've mentioned there. I think what we would see in Classified, very likely in actual fact, is a Tiger Force version of this figure.
For sure.
And that's a version that I think a lot of people would have been like, oh, I'm surprised you didn't go with that. We'll get to mine in a bit, but yeah, go on, Pat. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that out there while I was thinking about it.
No, I think that this is a fun choice. I think that a lot of people would see it as being a very different addition to their shelf. So I'm going to say yes. I like it.
Brilliant. 2 yeses there, Justin. But then how could you go wrong with Fun School? They are literally the world leaders for deco and design when it comes to action figures. And I will have no part of any argument about that. That is fact.
And there's all the lead in the plain paint, which is only the cherry on top of the sundae.
Exactly.
You know?
Especially if you eat it like a cherry.
Yeah, just lick your figures and off to the races.
Literal races. Pat, what about you, mate? What's your favourite Trippo?
Well, I'm looking at all of the options that I have. One of the things that always frustrated me, like the 25th figure was fine. I liked it. But I was a little frustrated that he didn't have a removable helmet for a modern figure. And then I was further frustrated by the fact that I always thought that his chest should have been using the smooth version of it rather than the flash that was kind of etched.
Yep.
And they came out with him for a second time, and it was exactly the same. So though that kind of just disqualifies any of the 25th or later ones for me. So looking at the ones prior to that, I really was going to go with version 1. And then I remembered whenever I got in 1989, whenever I got out all my old Joes and I was showing them to my younger brother, I can remember pulling Tripwire out and his crotch breaking.
Oh.
And not only did it break, but the shard of it flew right at me and hit me in the leg and kind of stung a little bit. So I was both sad and in actual pain a little bit. So
ironic that the guy who's supposed to diffuse explosives exploded on you.
He did.
Kitty said.
So I'm a little bit sad at the fact that my original Tripwire did that. And I thought that they did a nice job of giving us a Tripwire that would be less prone to breakage, particularly in the thumbs, whenever they released the Real American Hero one that had he's overall a darker green, and he had kind of like black armor on him rather than gray.
Yeah.
An excellent figure, and so I chose that one.
Yeah, it's a good shout, actually. You kind of like... I noticed with a lot of these, Pat, you'll often go with... I was going to go with version 1, but went with an improved version of version 1 that kind of came out late. That's come up a few times, I think, in our version therapies.
So.
And I get it. I get the appeal of that big time. I would also say that it's funny with that version of Tripwire. I'm with you. There's the character outweighs the figure in some ways for me. Like, the character's really interesting. Loads of fun in the file card. The artwork is phenomenal on the card art as well. The classic, like arm up thing, like they stopping them, and also like looking for, brilliant. Really cool. And then the features on the figure are cool, like the removable mines and the backpack and the little the connectable mine detector. Brilliant stuff. But the figure itself is so soft in its details, way more so than any other figure in the line, in my opinion. Like, you look at all the figures in the vintage line, and Tripwire stands out as being the softest sculpt. The fact that the helmet melts into his face, it's like such a weird, soft kind of vibe. Yeah, like, I used to love reading about him in the comics, used to love him in the cartoon, used to love the idea of the figure, of the character, but the figure never really quite ticked the box vintage for me.
Yeah, I agree.
100%.
And it's looking at that figure, and the fact that the helmet's not removable is just frustrating. And then even if you look at the details, like his mouth and nose, it is, like you said, it's very soft.
It's like ice cream.
Yeah.
It's literally just an ice cream face. He should be Ice Cream Soldier, shouldn't he? Anyway, yeah, good shout though. I think that was a good one. What about you, Justin? You a fan of is it 2001? I think it is, isn't it?
I think 2001, somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah, it's those Real American Hero 2-packs. And
2001.
Did he come with Gung Ho? Is that who he came with? No, maybe not Gung Ho. He came with, I don't remember who he came with, but Big Brawler, one of those weird 2001 figures. But
yeah, it was Big Brawler.
Big Brawler.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like that one a lot for a lot of the same reasons. It retained sort of the vintage look, but he was a little bit more durable. He's a little bit darker. He does look out of place. I agree. That might be part of why the figure has never really appealed to me, because even compared to his contemporaries, he does look a little bit soft and undetailed and just not very exciting. He's just kind of there. And then in 2001, with all these other, repaints of future figures that are bulkier and more detailed in the sculpt, he looks out of place there too. So, but yeah, I mean, I think for a version of Tripwire, that 2001 version is probably about as best as you get domestically.
Yeah, definitely. Should I just go ahead and say mine? Just get it out of the way. I mean, it's obvious in it, pretty much.
Everybody knows who you're going with.
Yeah,
said with such venom there, Justin. He's like, everyone knows, mate. I'm going to shock you. I'm going to shock you a little bit. It's Tiger Force Tripwire. No, I'm kidding. But Tiger Force Tripwire, I just want to quickly talk about that because that would have been my favourite in this chat had we not received this mental classified Tripwire very recently at SDCC. So, rewind. Even though I just said all that stuff about him being soft and not very good and all that kind of stuff, can I tell you how excited I was to find Tripwire Tiger Force in the States on card and being like, when I was a kid, and just being like, yes, I've got a Tripwire figure. Like, I was so excited about that. No matter what the figure does visually or whatever, it doesn't really look as good as it should do. I was so excited and happy to get that figure, and that's why it was oddly quite a close one for me. Like, I really loved that because of the nostalgia about it. But because of all the other things I said about that figure, it can't really be my favourite, especially with the new classified version, which is just phenomenal. Like, they have redefined what a $34.99 price point figure should be, and that is what it should be. Like, if they're going to do deluxe figures, Kamakura doesn't quite cover that kind of same thing. That if you put the two next to each other, Tripwire does have more things. So I would say that they have got that balance right if that's where they're going with this going forward. Snow Serpent as well, same amount, like a decent amount of gear. That's what you're looking for when you're paying a little bit more for these figures. And with Tripwire, wow. Just the head sculpt, perfect. The extra massive helmet and body, perfect. The other secondary, then the other helmet, and the other... It's just like there's so much stuff with this guy. And on top of that, you get the updated mine detector. You get the cutest little bomb-detecting rat I've ever seen in my life called Apsara, which I thought was a lovely addition. And so, more animals, the better. I will have characters that have never had animal companions have animal companions. Please and thank you. So the fact they threw in the rat as well, chef's kiss. But the biggest part of this whole thing is the little pistol he comes... No, I'm kidding. No, definitely for me, I was absolutely, genuinely blown away that they decided to use McLeod as an acronym for the cool-ass bomb disposal robot. I know we've been building up to this. I know this is very self-serving. I apologize in advance. But I gotta say it. I have to let this out. I have to vent this out. This is the coolest thing that has ever happened to me. Sorry, Kate. Sorry, Steve.
Wedding it's a close second, but yeah.
Not even. No, I'm kidding. It was just what... Like, and I know, like, Justin, I know you've been immortalized in the G.I. Joe universe. Pat, have you been immortalized in the G.I. Joe universe? I want to say you have.
I want to say that the name Patrick Stewart does not identify any known living person.
Except it does. A couple of them, actually.
Yeah. So, no, I've never been immortalized in the G.I. Joe universe.
So you're next, basically, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Justin, obviously, you've had a head sculpt. Do you have to talk about that?
What's that?
Are you allowed to talk? Yeah, because we always joke about it being we're very secretive about it. But are you allowed to actually discuss that?
I mean, it's years ago, and the Collectors Club isn't around anymore, so I don't think anybody would give me a hard time.
Go for it. Yell it from the rooftops.
One of the designers working on, helping out the Collectors Club with their figures back in the day is a close friend of mine, and did me the favor of asking for a couple of photographs so he could design a head sculpt for Dojo from the G.I. Joe Collectors Club, which interestingly was kind of sculpted in a way to also work as the headman, only the headman never ended up coming out. So it's just kind of a funky looking Dojo figure. But
I would say I would say that you didn't really want to be a drug dealer, did you? You didn't want to be immortalized as a drug dealer.
I don't care. Whatever. As long as I'm immortalized. No, I mean, but yeah, it's always an honor and a privilege, and something that really meant a lot to me and still does. I've got Dojo sitting right up on Actually, he's right up on my display shelf here. I've got him close by, so I mean, you can kind of see the resemblance.
You
but
can
yeah,
as well. Like it's so you as well. Like it's but sometimes it'll be like you see like a Hasbro employee got immortalized back in the day, and you're like, it looks nothing like them. But then you get your figure, and you're like, yeah, that's just in 100%. It's so good.
So yeah, no, it's very cool, and it's very much a privilege, and yeah, it's any of the crap that I give you is just me being me, because the minute I saw that, I knew right off. I'm like, oh man, that's all Chris, and it's well deserved.
It's a good likeness.
You spend, yeah, it is a good likeness. Especially that big robot arm.
What are you saying?
Out of its forehead. Yeah, especially that thing that's the size of. Oh wait, where am I going with this? I was thinking more the rat. I think it's your pet rat is really what the homage is.
I've got like a couple of things to clarify here. Like when it went live, I wasn't aware, I wasn't told that they were going to do anything like that. But I have been told in not in confidence, but they've told me outright that it's a nod in my direction. Now that obviously it's one of those things where I don't think they don't really tend to broadcast that necessarily.
But they'll start getting everybody asking, well, when's my turn?
When's my figure coming out? So I think obviously changing the spelling and all that kind of stuff, but it's a nice little nod in my direction, and I thought that was freaking amazing. Seeing McLeod on like emails coming through as well, like they go all out by putting the whole title in every single thing. Like every email I saw had McLeod written on it. Every, like on the Pulse page itself, when you go to order it, it's the whole title is there, and it's just, that's so crazy. Was it mobile armored control lever for explosive?
You better have that
disposal.
Committed to memory, man.
I'm
very disappointed in you.
I should know it,
geez.
shouldn't I? Something like that. But it's amazing, and and also the brand writers reached out to me as well to kind of say hi and also thanks for what we do on the show and everything. So amazing stuff. Thank you so much. And wow. So it couldn't be anything other than this. But I mean, look at this figure, man. Like, take that McLeod out of it, right? Not the robot, but the name out of it. This would still be my favorite Tripwire of all time. The fact that
hesitation.
They've literally made us a beautiful update to the original vintage style, and thrown in this modern thing, which is just mind-blowing. Pat, I know you want to say something here, buddy.
I was going to say, all they really needed to do, clearly, to make me happy was make the helmet removable.
Mission accomplished.
They're like, oh, I guess I didn't need to do all this other stuff.
Didn't need to name the robot a stupid name. They could have just...
And I think that in a previous episode, we were talking about animal companions. And one of us brought up the fact that the increase in scale can mean a decrease in the size of real-world animal that would be appropriate to pack in. I know that we may have mentioned the desert scorpion being too large originally.
Yeah.
But I think that we did maybe even mention a rat or a ferret or something like that.
Yeah.
Being able to be included. And so I think that if you are tasked with making a 6-inch tripwire, how do you make that interesting? Because it would have been very easy to just upscale the design, make the helmet removable, release it at retail, and have everybody go, okay, I'll buy, here's my $25, I'll buy them. But to make it actually into something that feels a little bit like an event and gives it that extra oomph that actually adds a lot to the history of the character is where I want to see the 6-inch line going.
Yeah, definitely.
The classified Tripwire does so much right that just makes it kind of head and shoulders above not just other Tripwire figures, but other versions of the classified, other classified figures. I mean, there's just so much. The fact that you can make it vintage accurate, but also make it modern. I mean, that's stuff that we've all been asking for with the classified line for a long time. The fact that it's you can not just swap gear, but you can remove gear to make them a little bit toned down. One thing that I actually really love about this figure is it reminds me a lot of Cops. There's a character in Cops called, I think it's Powder Keg, who's an explosives expert, and he's got all this layers of armor that you can peel off. I got that kind of vibe from him, or Long Arm in the G.I. Joe line. They could even repurpose some of this for Long Arm. So there's a lot of and the inclusion of the rat. I mean, That's brilliant. Everybody that I saw responding to that on social media was like, what is up with the rat? That makes no sense. You do a little Google search and you find out, oh, there really are mine detecting rats. I mean, that's where this came from. And that was something that I always loved about the G.I. Joe line back in the day, is I always felt like I was learning stuff from the G.I. Joe brand.
Yeah.
The way Larry Hama wrote the file cards, I was learning how, elements of the military worked,
Yep.
through that veil, through that lens. And I feel like I learned something at SDCC with the inclusion of the rat, which makes me seem like a small thing, but it's just cool. It's really cool how they kind of put this figure together. I'm a little worried they're setting a precedent for themselves that they might struggle with, because from now on, every single $34.99 figure they do is going to be compared to this, and everybody's going to say, well, Tripwire came with all this. This figure just comes with this. What's up with that? But hopefully they can maintain this going forward.
I think the days are gone. We'll see I use Kamakura. I love that figure, by the way. I think Kamakura is a beautiful figure.
Great figure.
But the loadout is not worthy of that particular price point. Now, the Snow Serpent, 100%. And that was like, you look at that, and Snow Job as well. Those kind of figures, that's what I expect. Tripwire has definitely stretched as much as it can to that end. But I feel like we're in that range. We're going to be in that range, Viper, between like Snow Job and Tripwire is where I think we're going to be. But yeah, I agree with you. I think everything is going to be, there's always going to be that vocal element of the fan base that are like, we know we need more, and we need all the same level of things that Tripwire came with. But it's it's whatever makes sense for the character, I think, a lot of the time, and this just makes sense, doesn't it? And it's phenomenal. And they didn't have to throw all that stuff in. They didn't have to add a rat. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at a picture. That's why I keep on looking over here, is because I've got a picture on my second monitor over here of all the different gear he comes with. And I mean, sure, the mine detector, the hose, the backpack with the removable mines, even if he had just come with that stuff and the ability to remove some of that gear, even without like the bomb disposal helmet and collar and second pad, that would feel like a decent complement of accessories.
Yeah.
But the fact they just went all out with all this stuff, it's really impressive.
I can see them doing a Tiger Force version of this and stripping it down to just the basic version.
Yep. The more vintage gear.
Yeah, that's what I would expect them to do in terms of that, because I mean that it's almost inevitable with Tiger Force now. Okay, cool. Well, I think we've said enough on this one. Again, massive thank you to the G.I. Joe brand team for that. Amazing. I'm never going to get over that. Game over. Life achievement achieved. Achievement unlocked. Whatever. It's not important. But what is important is we want to hear from you guys. Comment in the comment things below. Let us know who your favourite version of Tripwire is and why it's Listen and Fun School. Thank you guys. It's been another absolute stonking episode where we've got into some stuff that we've probably gone over time with again. But we do have a little extra for you following this as well, so don't worry. Will be a little bit more SDCC talk for you. Guys, thank you so much for jumping on. It's been an absolute pleasure as always.
Pleasure's ours. At least it's mine. I can't speak for Pat. But...
Yes, thanks again. It's always fun.
It's always fun school. It's always Listen and Fun School, right?
There you go.
That's the new catchphrase, I think. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you for joining us for the Full Force Monthly. Massive thank you to my awesome co-hosts, Patrick Stewart and Justin Bell. These names are not... What is it, Pat? No known affiliation? Or I can't remember the term.
The name Patrick Stewart does not identify any known living person.
Thank you very much. Neither does Justin Bell, right?
Exactly.
See you next month. And as always, after 3, 1, 2, 3, Full Force! Amazing stuff. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @The Full Force, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/The Full Force, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback and questions. We also have a Patreon page, so if you want to show your support for the show, see your name up in lights on these videos, or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/The Full Force Podcast, or click on the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force!